Hello?
It's a miracle.
The film, Sister, opens with a gripping scene where Mary is seen praying in an Italian convent. As the night falls, and the Mother Superior drifts off to sleep, Mary seizes the opportunity to steal her keys, planning her escape. She makes it as far as the gates before being intercepted by the other nuns, who brutally break her leg, leaving her helpless near the front gate. Mary wakes up in a coffin, crying for help, but no one comes to her aid. Meanwhile, Sister Cecilia arrives in Italy and faces immigration officials who question her intentions. She explains that she is there to take her vows at the same convent. After receiving permission, she boards a waiting vehicle that takes her to her new home. Upon arrival, she meets the Mother Superior, who finds her attractive, and Sister Isabel, who gives her a tour of the convent, warning her that the catacombs are off limits. Cecilia is introduced to some of the older nuns and observes others practicing for the choir. Isabel hints that Cecilia might reconsider taking her vows, but Cecilia assures her of her commitment. Cecilia meets her roommate, Sister Gwen, and they bond over stories of their lives before joining the convent. Gwen, who smokes, asks Cecilia why she left America, and Cecilia shares how Father Selesky discovered her and invited her to join the convent. That evening, Cecilia takes her vows under Father Selesky and Cardinal Franco Marola. She kisses the cardinal's ring and listens as Selesky shares how he found his purpose at the convent, expressing his belief that Cecilia has been chosen by God for a special mission. During a small celebration, Cecilia recounts how she nearly drowned in a freezing lake, with her heart stopping for 7 minutes. She leaves the party early, hearing strange sounds that lead her to explore further. Wandering through a metal gate, Cecilia finds a nun praying face down in an unfamiliar language, her face covered with a red cloth. Mother Superior appears and shows Cecilia a long nail, explaining that it was brought by Constantine's mother, and is believed to be one of the nails used in Jesus' crucifixion. When Cecilia holds the nail, she collapses. She later confesses her sins to Cardinal Franco Marola in the confessional booth. During this confession, she has a terrifying vision of being restrained by 5 nuns, one of whom stabs her. Waking up from this nightmare, she sees a shadowy figure at the door that vanishes when she turns on the lights. As Cecilia settles into her new life, she takes on various responsibilities, including preparing chickens for meals, caring for the elderly, and doing laundry. One day, she notices Sister Isabel staring at her oddly. That night, an old nun cuts a lock of Cecilia's hair, calling her the Blessed One. Cecilia leads the nun back to her room, noticing branding marks on the nun's feet. A few days later, Cecilia becomes nauseous during a bath and discovers she is pregnant despite being a virgin. The medical team examines her, and both Father Selesky and Cardinal Marola question her. Confused, Cecilia is reassured by Father Selesky that she has been chosen by God, just as he saved her from drowning years ago. They hold a ceremony to crown her, and the other nuns begin to see her as the next Virgin Mary, though Cecilia feels overwhelmed by the responsibility. This new status changes how the nuns treat her, even at mealtimes, which stirs jealousy in Sister Gwen. In a moment of anger and jealousy, Sister Isabel attempts to drown Cecilia during her second trimester, insisting that the test should be redone, believing she should have been the chosen one instead. Gwen raises alarm and seeks help from others in the convent. She begs them to allow her to see a doctor outside the convent, but her request is denied. The authorities in the convent insist that staying within the convent is safer for both her and her baby. They fear that people outside might not understand the concept of Immaculate Conception and could pose a threat to her safety. Tragedy strikes when Isabel, another member of the convent, leaps to her death from the chapel's roof. This incident amplifies Gwen's unease, but her attempts to voice her concerns are quickly stifled by others who try to prevent her from questioning the strange happenings in the convent. Begins to hear cries for help and wailing at night. Following the sounds, she finds Gwen bound to a chair, her tongue severed as punishment for her outbursts. Before discovering Gwen, Cecilia stumbles upon a cabinet containing records of her own childhood, intensifying her fear and confusion. When she tries to scream, An old nun stops her and ominously tells her that she will never leave the convent. One morning, Cecilia is found screaming in agony. She is covered in blood and appears to be experiencing severe pregnancy complications. The convent's resident doctor is unavailable because it is a Saturday, so Father Teskey decides to take Cecilia to the hospital. However, as Teskey drives her to the hospital, a nun finds a headless chicken with blood under Cecilia's bed, revealing that Cecilia had been deceiving them about the source of the blood. Upon realizing the deception, Teskey confronts Cecilia, who is forced to flee. Unfortunately, she is quickly captured and taken back to the convent. There, they force her to take a shower and tie her to a chair while waiting for Teskey. He explains to Cecilia their objective: to find a chosen virgin mother and use DNA from the nails of the crucifix to recreate the second coming of Christ in a lab. Teskey believes Cecilia was chosen for this purpose because of her survival in water. Teskey takes Cecilia to an underground lab where she sees fetuses in bottles, the failed attempts at recreation. He then brands her feet with a hot iron to prevent her from running away again. In the confession booth, Cecilia pleads with Cardinal Franco Moral to stop the horrors being inflicted upon her. But he coldly responds that only God can stop them. As Cecilia reaches the third trimester of her pregnancy, she becomes increasingly aware that her unborn child could either be the Antichrist or the new Messiah. During an ultrasound performed by the Mother Superior, Cecilia seizes a crucifix and kills her before fleeing. She then uses her rosary to strangle Moral and steals the nail from the safe. Cecilia's water breaks, and she experiences sharp pain. Desperate, she heads to Teskey's lab and pours ethanol all over it. When Teskey arrives and tries to stop her, she hits him with a glass tube and locks him inside the lab. Teskey tries to grab her, but she sets the ethanol on fire with a lighter, breaking one of his fingers in the process. Teskey is caught in the explosion, but manages to extinguish the flames and break through the door. As Cecilia navigates the catacombs, she finds Gwen's corpse, a grim reminder of the convent's brutality. Teskey, severely burned, catches up to her and tries to cut the baby out of her stomach. In a desperate move, Cecilia uses the nail she had hidden to stab Teskey in the throat, finally killing him. Cecilia manages to escape the convent, but her ordeal is far from over. She gives birth, biting off the umbilical cord, but the sounds from the baby are anything but human. The inhuman snarls and rasping noises suggest that this is not the second coming of Jesus. In a final act of desperation and horror, Cecilia picks up a large rock and smashes the creature she has given birth to, ending the nightmarish sequence of events.